Hello, everybody. My name is Karen, and I'll be going over SDGs 1, 11, and 12 from Massachusetts and South Africa. And here we go. So briefly go over the SDGs goals, the SDG goals, and background information. So just a quick review. SDG 1 is no poverty. 11, sustainable communities. 12, responsible consumption and production. And you can see the individual goals there and what they entail how they um and how they're laid out. And you can see the symbols too on the bottom of the screen. Now, some background information. You all probably know as well as I do about um, poverty is not a good thing, and so you want to end poverty in all forms, and that's the goal of SDG 1. So these are all things happening, and they're all negatives, and the COVID has had a big effect on what's going on, as you can see with this goal. More information to add to that on the left side of the screen, along with some information about SDG 11, which also been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. So, it's changed in the recent years due to the pandemic, and there'll be some changes going forward as well. But the impact has still been large, as I'll explain later on in the presentation. And SDG 12, yeah. So that's some things about SDG 12 and just how it's going, and similar to your other ones, it's we can't see here, but it has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and also just in general. There's some room to grow on this one. So just quickly going over targets. The SDGs have several targets: SDG 1, 11, and 12. Um, and a lot of targets have a set date of 2030. That's the one they want to reach. And the targets for SDG 11 and 1 overlap well, but not 1 and 12. Now, an example of this is target 1.1 and 11.1, which, to summarize, target 1 is eradicate extreme poverty. And extreme poverty is people living on less than $1.25 a day. And 11.1 is to ensure access to adequate and safe, affordable housing and basic services. So, as you can see, if you eradicate poverty, people will be able to upgrade their living situation, and vice versa. If you improve the living situation, they'll be able to get themselves out of poverty and be able to live more comfortable lives. And there are other goals like that, like target 1.5 and 11.5 are both about natural disasters. So that's just another example of the two overlapping, 11 and 1. So those are just two, um, those two overlapping. And now on to study sites. So if you're curious, the top photo is South Africa. I'm not exactly sure where. And the bottom photo is Massachusetts. I'm not exactly sure where Massachusetts that is, but somewhere in there. Same thing for South Africa. But they're nice photos though, so that's why I picked them. Now, South Africa is the southernmost country on the African continent. It's bordered by Namibia to the northwest, Botswana, and Zimbabwe to the north, Mozambique, Swaziland to the northeast and east, and Lesotho is an independent country and it's in an enclave in the eastern part of South Africa. So it's entirely surrounded by South Africa, and also it borders two oceans: the Indian Ocean, the southeast, and Atlantic to the southwest. And has estimated population of 60, estimated population over 60 million people. I'm sorry. Now, the climate of the country is temperate, and extremes in heat and cold are rare. And this is also impacted by the oceans surrounding the country on the east, south, and west sides. So they have influence on weather patterns too. And about Massachusetts, Massachusetts is one of the 6 states in New England, which also include Rhode Island, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, along with Massachusetts. And Massachusetts has a long coastline at about 1,500 miles, but yet the length of the state, east to west, is only 190 miles, and the north to south is 110 miles, which sounds about right from my experience driving through Massachusetts when I used to live there. So yeah, continuing, just a general overview of sustainability in South Africa. They're lagging behind more developed nations, but they're trying to improve with the National Development Plan. And this is backed by multiple stakeholders that review and assist and impact policies and programs. And they'll try to see shortcomings highlighted in these programs, which need to be improved. And these programs are in line with the UN's SDGs, Standard Development Goals, reporting in 2030, and also the agenda of the African Union in 2063. So they're trying to work on the sustainability with this National Development Plan. And the NDP, which is abbreviation for National Development Plan, prioritizes elimination of poverty, and reduction of inequality, and growing an inclusive economy by 2030. And it's already can contribute for some improvements in the lives of many South Africans. So it's done a good job so far to an extent, but more can be done, as you'll see in the coming slides. Now, Massachusetts sustainability, there are a lot of programs for clean energy, and all this growth in the clean energy sector has resulted in over 100,000 clean energy jobs. To be exact, 111,800 clean energy workers. Massachusetts was 3.1% of the workforce, and since 2018, it's added 1,000 clean energy jobs, and the industry contributes for $14 billion in the Massachusetts gross state product. So that's a good thing. And also, similar to South Africa, there are not necessarily a plan, but there are 10 sustainable development principles Massachusetts has for going forward and how to improve sustainability. And one is an example. One is concentrate development in mixed uses, and another one is advance equity. Now there's other ones such as expand housing and so on, but there's 10 of them, and they're all trying to improve in this area, this aspect. Now, SDG 1, no poverty. South Africa has some trouble with this goal, as it's a very unequal society, with 10% of the wealthiest 10% possessing more than half the nation's income, while the poorest 40% just are 7.2%. And according to Business Insider, this level of income inequality is the largest anomaly observed in the UN's Human Development Index. And as you can see, it's not ranked too highly in that index as well. And the standards of living are worsening, generally speaking, but they are trying to improve, and but they're just struggling, as I'll go over in the next slide. And as continuing on with SDG 1 in South Africa, struggling with certain targets 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, as it's reported that 18.9% of the population, about 11 million South Africans, live on less than $1.90 per day, which is not necessarily which is more than greater than extreme poverty, but still it's still less than the international poverty line, which is a very small amount, as this will round up to about $55 per month. And the COVID-19 pandemic hasn't really helped anything, as lockdowns and has caused the pandemic has caused people to lose their jobs, and there's a lot of hunger and food insecurity more than prior to the pandemic. And this may push, also the pandemic may push up to 1 million people into more people into poverty than before. So that's not good either. However, since 1994, when they started their democracy, began their democracy after apartheid, they've been improving or try to improve especially with the help of the NDP, National Development Plan, and so access to free education for poor households has expanded to over 9 million children attending no-fee schools. Individuals benefiting from social protection systems has increased from 3 million in 1994 to 17.5 million in 2018, and they're been attempting to grow, accelerate levels of investment, and to create more jobs for people. Now, that may not have been halted by COVID, but that was what they were doing beforehand. Now, on to Massachusetts with SDG 1. It's a little bit different here in Massachusetts, as Massachusetts is one of the wealthiest states in the union, but has more poverty than 24 states. And as you can see on the supplemental scale, 11.6% of the population is poverty. Now, this is a decrease from 2009 and 2011, which was 13.7%. So that's somewhat of a positive. But in urban areas near Boston, such as Metro West, there are a good number of people who live below the federal poverty line, and also homelessness has increased in that area as 44%. But it's increased by 45% since 2007, which is with more than 6,000 homeless residents in Metro West. And that includes 8% of children who live in poverty, and this is reflected in their test scores. And this is over 18 years. So this is from 2000 to 2018, when this data was obtained. However, based on their targets that the UN set, Massachusetts seems to be not necessarily struggling with any specific target based on the criteria set in the UN SDGs. But it's not perfect, as highlighted in this slide and the picture here too. People protesting something. Now, South African SDG 11. Let me go back. So SDG 11, targets 11.1, 6, and 5 have been a real source of trouble, and all this has to do with a lot of people living in the slum and informal settlements, as over a third of Cape Town's population live in slum or informal settlements. And over the past decade, the number of slum dwellers in the country in general has increased by 55%. Um, and these areas are prone to flooding and other natural disasters as they're informal housing, so it's not too sturdy. As many of them are exposed to heat waves and floods, and as they're marginalized, risk-prone land. And an example of this is in 2021, in the first 5 months of the year, all 9 provinces of Western Cape experienced floods on top of a series of devastating fires. In Western Cape, they don't. It's not. How I say it? And Western Cape is a province in South Africa, which includes Cape Town and some other places. So it's a larger area than just like a city, like or one singular city. Although it's not only bad, as Cape Town specifically was named as one of the most or 10 most eco-friendly cities in the world, taking the lead for the entire continent by having things like commercial wind farms and bike routes and supporting farmers markets. So there is some positive there, specific for Cape Town. And additionally, whenever regarding the air quality in South Africa, it's not the worst. As you can see, there are a lot of places with less than PM of 25, with PM is particle matter, if I remember correctly. So it's less than 25, and that's good. But there's some places where it's over 75 near some of the some of the larger cities, specifically Johannesburg, southeast of that, and southwest of that, and right next to Durban. Although Cape Town seems to be doing very well, and this would be pretty consistent considering it's supposedly one of the 10 best eco-friendly cities according to that source I just stated. In Massachusetts, in SDG 11, now I didn't seem to have too much trouble with this, generally speaking. Target 11.6, 11.7 have been somewhat problematic, but not too much. As the air quality in Massachusetts has worsened over recent years, as it's found that 8 and 12 counties in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts recorded more bad ozone days, resulting in reduced grades compared to 2018 report compared to 2019 report. And also the city of Boston, as it's stated, is embracing sustainability, ranking in the top 10 in some publications. But and also, I mean, in the surrounding city as well too, Cambridge and Arlington around there. A lot of green. There's green space and places like that. However, according to this study, Boston also ranks third in the lowest green space density with 168 square feet per resident, which is a third of a tiny house. So that they can always improve on that. But generally speaking, they do well in this regard. Now, SDG 12 in South Africa, and similar to the other two, they are struggling with that, as a lot of waste it's and the country generates 108 million tons of waste annually, which 90% of it goes to landfills. And this in 2017, they generate 55.6 million tons of general waste and 52% of it hazardous waste. And 6.6% of 6% of the hazardous waste was recycled or recovered. So not a lot of it being recycled, and also a lot of food is wasted as well, as you see there, and roughly 10 million tons of food annually is wasted. That's the number. And this report was found by a worldwide Fund for Nature South Africa, so they're looking into that. And this is around 30, and this is compared to how the country produces 31 million tons of food each year. So they're wasting a good amount of the food that they um, put out. But compared to their neighbors in southern Africa, they are more advanced in this regard, but still lagging behind other developed nations. Now, in comparison to a developed nation like the United States or specifically Massachusetts, they don't really seem to have too much of a problem with this, with the exception of a few things. And this is regards to the reducing waste and recycling, as the price for recycling has gone up. As for example, and now it costs $140 a ton to process recyclables, as compared to $5 a ton back in 2017. And in Boston, the budget is $4.8 million for recycling, and a lot of this has happened because the lack of demand, since China stopped accepting materials from the U.S. about 2 years ago. The prices have gone up, and all cities across the state are suffering, or citizens across the state are kind of suffering from this. And about food waste, over 1 million tons of food per year get wasted, and this is from restaurants and colleges and supermarkets, college residents. So there's a lot of food waste and whatnot, and a lot of the trash goes into landfills. As landfills are filling up, back in 2016, Massachusetts residents disposed 5.6 million tons of solid waste in landfills and incinerators, and almost 80% of what they disposed was burned. I'm sorry, almost 80% what they incinerated could have been recycled. So pretty wasteful, and that was back in 2016. So I'm curious to know what it'd be right now. But just in general, the state's landfills are near capacity, so there's some work to be done in that respect. But in general, they don't necessarily have a huge problem with this. And to conclude, so from the information, it seems that Massachusetts is more sustainable than South Africa. As South Africa has a lot of room to grow, but Massachusetts can get better as well. But in my opinion, they really need to address SDG 1 before they go into anything else, as I would think that would kind of solve a lot of the other issues as well. Not solve, but it help really mitigate those very much. And they have a national development plan, so they're on the right track. Massachusetts already has a pretty good plan in place with their 10 principles, but they just need to shore up some things and try to keep improving as a state and union, especially in my opinion when it comes to wasting food, as that could be used to help out a lot of people in poverty, and also those who may be displaced. So those are my opinions, and here are references, and I hope you enjoy that presentation.